Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What did you think of Destroyer?
Unbelievable.
Well, I hope you all had a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and next week, Happy New Year. Let's go. Let's do this 2019. Phew. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming to tonight's screening of Destroyer. Please welcome, to the stage for our very fun and insightful Q&A we're about to have, costume designer Audrey Fisher. Please welcome screenwriters Phil Hay and Matt Manfredi. And please welcome the director of Destroyer, Karin Kusama. Well, so I've seen the film 3 times, and the first time was a Telluride, and the third time was just the other night, and Wednesday night. And this is a film that when you know how it ends, you go back and you watch it again, and you're paying closer attention to it. But when did you guys sort of, first of all, come up with the idea for the film? And when did it sort of crack it to make it about a woman and her daughter, really?
Well, we thought of the basics of this idea probably about 10 years ago. Matt and I had been talking through, we tend to marinate on things for a really long time, and the nugget of this kind of happened, and the idea of telling this cop story that was about ultimately the detective investigating herself in both literal and metaphorical ways, but it was really when we figured out who Erin Bell was and specifically what her relationship with her daughter was going to be, that felt like that was the reason for us to make, the 3 of us to make the movie. And that's kind of the thing that kind of lit it up and made us say, okay, we have to write this script and we have to make this movie.
Well, what not only was it that you loved about Erin Bell, but was it that you sort of connected with her? What was your point of connection with Erin? How did you sort of, in some ways, relate to her to really get under her skin?
Well, I think I have a real affection for pissed off women, and and I think she's interesting. I mean, I think she makes mistakes, and really for me, I'm looking from movies, what I'm looking for from them are characters who go through, a crucible, a journey of ultimately looking closer at themselves and becoming accountable. That was the story, and I just thought, I don't think we see many movies about that, and I don't think we see that happen actually much out in the larger world, and so there was something about it that just really appealed to me, this notion of moral accountability.
Well, Audrey, I know this is your first film, first feature.
Yes.
I know you worked on other films, but this is your first actual feature.
It's true.
As a costume. So first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
But when did you start to get an idea of just the looks of Erin? Because they're very different. There's the before and after look.
Yeah. Well, it starts with the script. Yeah. I mean, it was all laid out so beautifully by these 2 gents. I just really needed to try to give Erin a reality. I needed to make her an absolutely believable character. And she's so flawed, and she's this sort of noir detective, so there are certain sort of genre points I wanted to hit, and the jacket sort of achieved that in the now. And yeah, I mean, it also, I knew that I would have to disguise sort of the equivalent of Helen of Troy. And so it meant that I had to find a gritty, sort of touch a gritty realness, and that just meant scouring all the vintage stores, scouring the thrift stores, and then coming up with this one really important costume element, which was the leather jacket, and building that for this character and breaking it down, making it fit sort of in a weird bulky way that would help her, give her a second skin, and sort of give her this physicality that would change her from Nicole Kidman into Erin Bell.
One of the things that I love about the film is, I love movies like The French Connection and Serpico and, Heat, but this is so different. It sort of deconstructs, I would say. I feel, just from my perspective as a viewer watching the film, it sort of deconstructs the cop, detective, LA. There's a lot of there's a fusion of different, fields going on. Like, was that like a conscious decision when you were working on the story, or did it just come out organically when you were in production?
I have to say, I think that something we realized, we all love those movies and are very deeply, obviously inspired by them. But I think that what we started realizing we wanted to do was to tell a story that kind of didn't cut off before all the emotional consequences of those type of stories happened. And like there are consequences to living your life the way you see depicted in crime movies, and that we wanted to tell a story about someone who had made mistakes, and one very, very bad mistake, and had spent her life trying to either hide from it, fix it in the wrong way, all those things. And so I think what we wanted to do different, and we also want, we knew that we really wanted to have this kind of shootout in the middle of the movie, that was really important to us. Yeah. But that it was all had to be about sort of the emotional reality that it would be to be her and to be these other people around her.
Yeah, I think one example of that is the relationship with her daughter, which I think in a lot of other cop movies, especially sometimes with men, the kind of bad relationship with the son or daughter is just kind of like part of the job, the deep voice part of the job. But that was kind of the most interesting part to us in some ways. That was kind of, for us, that was kind of the heart of the story, what made it human for us and what made it interesting for us to work on.
Well, also the non-linear aspect of it it adds such a layer to it, because you see, the before and after, the toll, the emotional and obviously the physical one as well that it takes on Erin is it's shocking. When the movie starts, that image you see, like whoa, like that's Nicole Kidman. Like it's getting Nicole, working with her, like the first conversations that you had with her. Really, what was her take on her?
I was so interested in working with her because her take was so interesting. She immediately talked about shame and what that does to your mind and your body and to your soul in a way. And as we were talking, it was kind of, we could start to figure out that there was shame that that Erin carried that wasn't hers to carry, the stuff that happened to her as a kid, and then the stuff that happened to her because of the mistakes and choices she very consciously made, and that's where her rage comes from, that she hates herself for it. And so I just felt like Nicole was able to tap into something really relatable, at least to me, about the character's ability to bend the truth and lie to herself. And she just spoke very movingly about being connected emotionally to the character.
So someone like Nicole Kidman comes on, and like you've already got your script. It's like, well, okay, let's do this, let's go. Like, so she comes on, and you go, okay, let's go back and like see if we need to like tweak something, or maybe you work with her and she brings her own ideas to something that you didn't think about. How'd that work?
Well, the main thing we did really before meeting her just was we aged up a little bit. The character was originally about 7 or 8 years younger, and we just adjusted for that. And but she's so smart and so incisive, and it's little things along the way that we talked about. And she had huddled with Karin beforehand, and we had some conversations generally about the script, but mainly the stuff that we worked on at times was just on the day, and there were little conversations. Because she just thinks it through, and she really and there was a moment when she says, she tells Jay when she's buying him off that how much she loves her daughter, and it was a moment that we had a long conversation of. It was a small line, but to her it was a big thing of I don't think I'm there yet. I don't think I give him this. I only say that to her in that next scene, and so she's so smart and she's thinking it all through, and so those are the changes we make along the way with someone like her.
And she would also, like she said to us that she really responded to the idea that we didn't speak her story, her backstory in the movie, except for, this one line that she really found that was there for that reason about what happened to her, what her abusive mom basically in her childhood, and that inspired her, that was enough, but that too much in the script would not have, that she responds to like little pointed chosen details more than she does an exhaustive thing, but she did ask us to write a character kind of bio for her, and it was really just for Karin and for her, and those are the people who have ever seen it, and we really went and told in detail everything that we thought happened in her whole life, basically. But that was all in the background, and that was all stuff that we said, if that helps you, take it, and if it doesn't help you, don't take it. But I think she likes to have that in the background as opposed to be like in the text.
Audrey, the look of Erin, it's what she wears, it's what she looks like, it's her look. So how did you work with makeup designer Phil Corso? Bill Corso. How did you work with Bill Corso, the makeup designer, to get it all right?
I mean, he's very collaborative, and we just had an immediate kind of great energy with each other. I would just share fitting photos, as I always do. I shared fitting photos, showed him all my research. I make these sort of research boards, and I share those pretty widely with all the department heads, with him and with Barbara, the hair designer. And I think, I sent them and then asked him to sort of talk to me about it and let me know what he thought. And he just responded to all the imagery really well.
Yeah.
And I think, for him, it was really a lot of intense conversation with Nicole and with Karin to sort of figure out the levels, how far to go, and, taking photos, doing photo tests and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and also just like basic stuff about like how certain colors were going to react to what we were doing to her skin, which was kind of giving it this like weathered, sun-damaged, heavily pigmented look. There were certain colors that we knew we wanted to stick with anyway, but I think he was happy we were, because we wouldn't have wanted her to be wearing orange, for instance.
No, but also I do remember when I saw when he first did the makeup tests that first time, I really knew immediately I would have to age the clothes more.
Yeah.
That, she was so weathered that I would really have to take it a little farther.
Like her whole life was in disrepair,
Right.
Not just her self-care, but everything about her life.
Yeah.
But it's just the contrast of the before and after. It's almost like this glow, this like innocence to her before, from the way she wears her hair to how you see the freckles and then just the sort of attire that she's wearing, and then just present day, it's like, look out. Can't believe it's the same person. But the other thing is, like, this movie was shot on location everywhere. No sound stages, none of it. Was that always the plan, to go out, or did you?
I think it was always pretty much the plan, just because we always knew it was a low-budget movie that couldn't afford to build so many sets. I mean, it's sort of like the script demanded that we be on location because, she's constantly moving. We never had a single location that she really returns to. Even her house, she's not in very much. And so we really had to think in that way. And so it served the movie, though, because we always knew we wanted it to be this incredible kind of odyssey across our LA, an LA that felt a little less seen, a little more unusual.
What is it about LA that, I've lived here for 29 years now, and it's home, but there's really no place like it. Like, what is it about the stage of LA that gives it just such a great backdrop, especially for a film like this?
Well, Karin has talked before, more eloquently than I'm about to, about the LA being this city of contradictions, and how the sunset can be so beautiful, but it's because of these horrific wildfires that we're having. And there's always something like that inherent in LA. And besides being our home, the sprawl of it and the little pockets that you don't know exist, and the neighborhoods that we wanted to try to film that people don't film, and we have an affection for it, but there's just so much available here, I think.
I also think, very biased, and I'm speaking to a room of Angelinos, so it's pretty funny to go by. I think that when I really think about it, I think LA, is for me the center of the world. It's where it's at right now, and the collision of all these people and ideas, and like Matt was saying, the beauty and the weirdness and everything kind of coming together. And I think, in terms of a crime movie, it's funny. It's big enough, and it's so big and so sprawling that you might nurture the idea that you could kind of get away and hide somewhere. But the fact is, and we see on the news every once in a while, there's just no getting away. They're the idea of the helicopters, and the police will even in this landscape, you will find you. And so there's something about a crime movie in LA that encompasses all that.
Yeah, first time when I first moved down here, my parents came out to visit. They're like, "Let's go downtown." I'm like, "No, you don't want to go downtown." Now it's okay, but back in 1990, it was not. Going from TV to or streaming, really. Been in a high castle, and what is it like to go from weekly in some respects to feature, especially one that's pretty low budget?
Well, I think in terms of the narrative, it's exciting to have a whole story all at once and be able to tell the story through the clothing, through the costume design, and kind of know the beginning, middle, and end, and take that journey. When you're working on episodic, you don't really know what's going to happen when you start in episode 1. Episode 8 could be a whole, you don't know. So I found that actually very rewarding to be able to really tell the whole story and sort of plan it out, map it out. And in terms of budget, that's actually really interesting how in television, I've had much more money.
Yeah.
And so this was an interesting challenge for me because I had to work with a very aggressive budget and really make it count. And it worked because of the story we were telling and the way that people were living.
And what were some of the other ways, especially after Nicole Kidman signed on, that through her wardrobe, you helped her find her character, you helped her find Arabelle?
I have to say, looking back on it, especially now, this is my third time seeing the film,
yeah.
and I look back at our fittings, and when you find out that Nicole Kidman is your leading lady, it's pretty shocking. And you do, immediately I sort of assumed it would sort of change the way I needed to approach the design. But in fact, she was so open to how we did this. We had a couple of big fittings, and that was it. But she really just was completely open to the process. She let me do what I needed to do to create these costumes.
And a lot of times, and it felt like Nicole would say, "Can you just make the shoes heavier?"
Yeah.
It wasn't about how they looked to the outside world, it's about how they felt on her.
Yeah.
So it was really about, for her, getting into a psychological space with the clothes.
Yeah, it was about the feeling. She actually, I just remembered when I was giving an interview the other day that in our first fitting, which was our first fitting, she didn't look in the mirror once, which at the time sort of freaked me out. But now in retrospect, I realize she understood she was putting on this.
Well, it's like she was already getting into character.
Yes, she was
This
getting
was not a character who looks in the mirror.
Never. And also she was just putting on a disguise, just disappearing.
And she's talked about how she didn't take off the jacket.
Right.
After.
And she refused.
Yeah.
We asked her once, we were like, "Do you think maybe you would maybe take this off?" No. Right? She said no. She said absolutely not.
Because of the depth of the film, someone like Nicole, especially when she was doing the more present day stuff, and where it was much heavier, at the end of the day, does she come out how do you go there?
It's funny, in terms of the process for Nicole as an actor, she did not really she didn't really kind of step in and out of character. She just stayed in character. And so it was a pretty, I think, a very difficult thing to sustain for her. But I think in the way she's described it, it would have been more difficult to kind of slide in and out of who Nicole is versus who Erin is, because Nicole's a much more optimistic person than Erin, and I think she felt like it was just too jarring to have to swing between those two people.
Well, I'd love to open up to the audience if you have questions. You know, this is the chance to do a deep dive, and you're first.
What was the budget?
It was under 10 million.
Nice. And how did you get Nicole?
Say again?
How did you get Nicole?
Nicole actually miraculously just read the script on her own, honestly, and came to us. She is a very unusual actor who just wants to read what's out there, and particularly interesting roles for women. And she really sought us out. It was a really amazing experience. It created a really open conversation between us before we all signed up to be working together.
Did you all high-five each other?
Feels pretty good. I was going to say, we've been doing this for a really long time, and that call very, very rarely happens, where an actor of her caliber just, it's not a 6-month journey of, you know, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, to get there. It was just her passion for this character, and working with Karin was so clear that I mean, that's really something you wait, in my case, 24 years to happen. So it's
who else has a question? Yes, right there.
My sense of the film was that the climax actually happened in the scene with her daughter. Was that your intention, or was your intention at the final scene?
I think
What was the question?
the question was that it felt that the climax happened in the scene with Shelby at the diner. I think emotionally that's where we're meant to feel some kind of closure for her and her daughter. And my hope was that in making that confrontation with Silas and sort of revealing the larger circular structure of the movie, that then that we could allow her a moment of some kind of ecstatic grace, having given incriminating information against herself to her partner, come clean to her daughter, that there could be some sense that this is a character who settled her accounts as best she could. And in that moment of doing that, and right before the end of her life, she also is having a reconnection with a sort of more mysterious world. That was the hope.
I think for myself too, just to add, I think that has always been the center of the movie. To me, that scene has always been the reason in some ways. So in that way, that is the focus in the context, and then also because I think that what we realized is that's what she had to do was to give her daughter the tools to outlive her, basically. And in succeeding at that, she's at least succeeded at something.
Right there, yes, nice and loud.
What is the root to the story? Is it something that just comes to mind and is written, or is there some kind of something that triggers the thought of the story?
I mean, the little spark at first was this idea of a character, a cop investigating a crime, but ultimately investigating herself. And so that kind of way of telling a story, a way of investigating a character, was our original spark. But what really got this both everything, but the story itself in motion for us was the character of Erin. Once we hit on who that was, and who she had to be, and the relationship with the daughter, that was kind of the thing that drove it for us.
So you started with that concept
for us. That sometimes it's a theme or a question. The movie that we did before this, The Invitation, it was really a thematic idea, and then the story came after that. And you know, other movies it's something different, but in this case, it really, I think it was this structure, and then, okay, here's this character that we want to.
If there was a question for Nicole, take on.
Right. Hi there. I'm very impressed with the character, and the way she was written. Like, you don't see many characters like that. Like, she was like an anti-heroine, and she was going against herself. And Nicole stayed very simple, and like she was displaying all these emotions despite being stoic and such. So I was wondering, were there any like we didn't see much of her childhood. Like, did she have like any issues with her parents like that? Like, what was like your idea first?
To our mind, she had. None of it was ever written in the script. We discussed it. It's like, to our mind, she had kind of a bad childhood. But we wrote a very detailed version of that for Nicole, just as for her to use, just to inform her choices or to take little bits that were meaningful to her for certain scenes. But it was all in the background for us.
And just, that we were able to have that one line where we said, it's revealed that her mom burned her with cigarettes and that she lived kind of with her brothers in this house with no adults for half their lives, and that she lived in this kind of desert. We always called her a desert rat, that's who she was. And so that the desert is so much a part of her. And growing up like a lost animal in the desert with very little to count on kind of is what started this hunger that she had that leads her to ruin.
Got time for one more question, and it's yours, sir.
Yeah, great job.
Thank you.
Yeah. And could you talk a little bit about the music? It has such a presence.
So the score is written by Teddy Shapiro, who I've worked with on 4 of my 5 films, and we work in a different way at this point. We started on the invitation, and this was more a necessity of budget, that Teddy had started writing music earlier as we were prepping. And then that worked so well for us on the invitation to have so much music to work with as we were shooting, that we very consciously decided to start recording the score. Teddy would start writing and recording elements of the score even before we started prep. So Teddy is probably the next person after Phil and Matt and myself to actually read a script. And so he brings in players early and starts creating the score early, based only on the script and only on our conversations collectively about a creative tone, a vibe, a sense of what the priorities are thematically for the film. And so by the time we were shooting, I would say about half of the score was already written, and so I was able to play the score for the department heads and send them the music, and we could play it for Nicole in the makeup trailer and for all the other actors if they wanted to hear it. Like, it was just it was a way to connect all of our collaborators to the tone of the movie, and it to me, it's a way of working that I can't imagine going back at this point.
Well, luxury. You're shaking your head like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had started prep, and it was, I was sort of trying to wrap my head around all the characters, and then you sent me a couple of files, and I was sitting there working and looking through, photography books, and started playing it, and I think I just started crying. I mean, because it was so like inspirational and instructive in sort of the depth of the imagery that we were going to be creating, because the sound was so powerful. I love the score. It's incredible.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, now that Destroyer is in theaters, please spread the word. Go on social media, go on Twitter, go on Instagram, go on Facebook, go on MySpace if you're still using MySpace.
Tell your friends in person.
Tell your friends in person. Word of mouth. Please spread the word. Thank you. And
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you guys being here.